I want to start by talking about my family. And this picture is very special because it shows one of those rare moments when we all got to come together. It was taken in January 2011. But you see, we live all over the place. So as I said, this is rare. And just for the record, that's me in the corner. But what's important about these people, aside from the beautiful people in it, is the numbers. There's 27 of us in it, out of which 7 have had major brushes with depression. Now, this is 25% of people in the frame. Depression is something that affects 6.7% of Americans. That's roughly 15 million people. And according to the National Institute of Mental Health, 80% of people who are dealing or struggling with depression go untreated. It's increasing at an approximate rate of 20% every year, which has led the World Health Organization to label it an epidemic. Now, I really only learned that this condition was present in my family when I myself was diagnosed about a year ago with something called dysthymia, which is a minor but chronic form of depression that affects 2% of Americans in a given year. Some of its symptoms include prolonged melancholia or sadness, lack of energy, paranoia, and anxiety. So it was dealing with my own condition that led me to realize two things. One, for those who've never struggled with depression, it's something really hard to understand. And for those who are struggling with it, it's really hard to express. This creates a major gap in our public discourse. And this gap leads to stigma, which is probably the biggest enemy that mental health care faces, not just in America, but all over the world. You see, despite its prevalence, many still believe that depressed people can be talked out of it, get it together. But these things don't necessarily apply for those who are struggling with a major psychological and physical disorder. Depression, it's a serious illness. It's not a sign of weakness, and it's not a character flaw. Treating it as a personal problem or not a real illness can lead depressed people to not seek professional help and isolate themselves. This is also known as social distancing. I believe that eradicating stigma and social distancing should be a top public health priority. So I started ZOA, a series of didactic experiments that help people who've never struggled with depression empathize with those who are struggling with it. In ZOA, participants assume the role of an engineer on a mission to discover what's causing their planet or his or her planet to die. And ZOA has two functions. One, subvert the traditional arcs of video games, those of bulking up, as you play, you get more armor or weapons. And repurpose them to tell a story about the impact of depression through its physical impact. And two, reinforce the fact that depression is treatable. According to cognitive behavioral therapy, this is a pattern of negative thoughts that, with enough practice can be recognized and broken. So starting with experimental interfaces, I try to build empathy for those people who suffer from depression by putting regular people who haven't had it in their shoes. And my first experiment was the numbness anxiety test, where participants wear a magnetized glove and drag an object through an interface in order to solve a series of connect the dots puzzles with a time constraint of 1 minute. As they move around the object, they realize that even though they're executing a simple task like they normally would without a physical impairment, even basic actions require tremendous amount of energy and concentration, which can be a struggle when trying to solve a simple task. And this is very similar, or almost exactly, what a person suffering from depression goes through when trying to do something as simple as getting up from bed to go to the kitchen and grab a cup of coffee. Now, the glove itself is designed to simulate numbness and sluggishness, a sensation that is created by the magnet strips on the hand and the sheet of metal that covers the board where the interface is projected on. While the puzzles emulate simple tasks that grow in complexity over time. Success is measured by completing the puzzle, like I said, in under 1 minute. And users are rewarded by moving on to a more complex new puzzle and being prompted to remove magnets from their glove. They get penalized if they don't do this under a minute, and they're asked to add more magnets to their glove and watch and have to reset and do the puzzle all over again. Now, this set of interactions are not designed to be easily solved. They're meant to be stressful, they're meant to be straining. But at their core, they're meant to be ultimately achieved. I wanted to explore the dynamic of games because I firmly believe that games in all forms are intrinsically learning experiences. You see, before you play any game, whether it's a board game or a video game, you have to learn the rules. Before you get deeper into the dungeon, you have to play through level 1 and learn the tutorial. So in games, we tackle challenges more creatively, and we're more likely to reach out for help while solving problems. That's why World of Warcraft is so awesome. And Rollo May, an existentialist psychologist, said that depression is the inability to construct a future. Through ZOA, I'd like for the future to be able to take this outside of the experimental context and turn it into a tool that not can only stop stigma, but it can also help us understand not just depression, but other mental struggles like schizophrenia or dementia, and even PTSD. So I agree with this quote by Jane McGonigal because I'm a living proof of it. And I believe that the opposite of depression is play. Thank you.